My friend Jim was a radio talk show host in Salt Lake City and loved to go to Russia in the early 80s when it was still communist and so mysterious. He invited me to go with him to do a series of works based on the Russian military as represented in the military academies in St. Petersburg. It was an opportunity of a lifetime, and it's evolved into a 9-year adventure of great power for me and my work. Very quickly we became known perhaps among these young people, and we set to work with a gathering of parties where I would photograph their faces and get to know them briefly. Of course, there was a complete language barrier, though I'm pretty good at waving my arms about and being able to communicate otherwise. But Russians generally tend to be enigmatic in my experience. So even if I could speak Russian, I suspect I would still have a sense of bewilderment. But I developed a great passion for the people and a great passion for the country that as I did these pieces, I felt it grow and deepen because of the process of drawing the people of Russia, particularly the military, starting out with the young and ending with some of the old, so that we were dealing with young people who were in training, we were dealing with wives and mothers whose sons or daughters were in Chechnya. So each time I sat down with these young people or the older people and did a drawing, I developed this insight or this instinct that I felt they were becoming me and me becoming them. We were dealing with elderly people who had been part of World War II, who had been part of the great horrific siege of St. Petersburg.
Так мой муж взял его, разобрал его окно в поезде, выкинул. Я говорю, зачем ты? Там же выгравировано, написано «Подарок Нины Васильевны Остаповой».
We had the models just tell us a little about themselves. Frequently they would write directly onto their drawings, and the insights began to flow. I remember one old man who told me that he told us, in fact there was a group of us because there was a translation going on, that he'd been in the tank corps in Hungary during World War II, that his tank had been hit. And the interesting thing about him was prior to this conversation he had been terribly nervous and rather giggly, in fact. He had missing a tooth that was particularly funny. And then the moment he started telling his war story, he sobered up quite tragically and started to weep and told us how the tank had been hit. His commander had been able to get him out of the tank, but his 2 comrades had been killed, burned to death. This kind of experience is one that is unique for anybody, and particularly for me because my experience has been so geographically various. But the experience with Russia is deeper than perhaps I could ever have imagined, and I would only hope that I could develop that same kind of experience in, for example, my homeland in Africa, as I did in Russia. One of the things that is characteristic of my work and characteristic of Russians is this whole notion of beauty. I feel that I'm often accused of being sentimental perhaps in my approach to my work. But the whole notion of beauty is one that I believe is legitimate and powerful even in this day and age of cynicism. One of the intriguing things for me was the sense of Russia running through my mind throughout the process of doing these drawings, and then speaking to individuals that the mystery, there's an element of mystery that startled me. For example, one of the wives, her first husband, it was rumored, was killed by the mafia. So all this contemporary Russia was going on while I was working on the elderly people thinking back to the siege in World War II, and seeing the exposure there and realizing how Russia was crumbling and building at the same time as I was working on these drawings and paintings, and the feeling that I was an integral part of a process that was totally mysterious to me, even though I was part of it. couldn't help be part of it, just with these individuals who gave themselves so generously to me by sitting and thinking and then writing or speaking briefly about their lives and experiences. Even while drawing the very old, there was the sense of timelessness and the beauty of time exposed in the model. Then drawing the very young with the imperfections showing through the youthfulness and the potentiality and the life ahead. This sort of back and forth flow became a potent part of the whole process, from one session to another over several years, 9 years in total, and then into the big paintings as well. So the experience is one that will, of course, is paramount and perhaps my primary experience of my entire career, and for which I'm extremely grateful to my friend Jim and to all his Russian compatriots who made this happen with a tremendous amount of production and organization. The whole experience over 9 years gave me a sense of Russia that I would never have dreamed possible, and certainly something I could never have anticipated, and giving me an opportunity of a lifetime.